Hello and welcome here to the Rooster Illusion Abode. You've just clicked in for our very first movie review here on the channel, where we're talking about Ready or Not, Here I Come. Now, just to preface this, I was a very big fan of the first movie. I really enjoyed it back in 2019 whenever it came out. I found it to be unique. I found it really fun. But yeah, that's what led me out to the theater yesterday to go see Ready or Not 2. I came into the movie very excited, especially since I was planning on making it my first review here on the channel. But yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the meat potatoes of this thing, huh? Let's go ahead and start talking movie. We're talking about Ready or Not 2, Here I Come, which was directed by Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett, who worked together on the original. They also worked together on the Scream reboot and Scream 6, as well as a more recent movie called Abigail, which I haven't seen, but just kind of giving you sort of the rundown of who these guys are. It's starring Samara Weaving, returning as Grace. We bring in new additions like Kathryn Newton as the estranged sister, Faith. Elijah Wood as the lawyer, only credited as the lawyer. Pretty fun, right? We have Sarah Michelle Gellar and Shawn Hatosy, who are Ursula and Titus Danforth, sort of our main antagonist within the movie, which is rounded out with features from actors and actresses such as Olivia Cheng, Anthony Hall, Varun Saranga, Nadeem, Umar Kitab, Maia J, and Néstor Campbell as other competitors sort of within our game here. We immediately jump in following the events of the first movie. Grace is taken to the hospital where she is reconnected with her long-estranged sister, Faith, because she's still listed as her emergency contact. With the recent demise of the Ladomus family from the first movie, a new game has been triggered within the rules of the mysterious Mr. LaBelle's organization. Upon learning of their failure, Chester Danforth, who's played by David Cronenberg, fun enough, relays to the rest of the families that the High Council consists of, that the ball is in play. The game is afoot. Each family now has a chance to compete for the high seat in the council and essentially gain the power to control the world. Representatives from each family are brought in for a double or nothing game of sorts of hide and seek against Grace, who also now has the opportunity to compete for this seat on the High Council, and of course her sister Faith, who was roped into this whole sort of fiasco, right? And that sort of sets the stage. That is what the movie is. Now let's talk about the meat and potatoes for real. Let's get into the review. My review of this movie starts with this sort of pace that they set up from the very beginning of the movie. Now, for better or worse, this pace is there. You know, it's fast. It's bat out of hell. You know, there are very few times, where the movie kind of just like dips out. And so, especially in the beginning, whenever you're sort of in this exposition phase within the movie, it's breakneck, right? All of a sudden, all right, yeah, we got Grace to the hospital. Here's Faith. Here's some of their baggage. Now we're cutting over to the Danforths. Here's their family dynamic. All right, now we're cutting to see all the different people that are going to be coming in to compete, right? It's going. Then all of a sudden, bang, we're getting attacked at the hospital. Somebody's trying to cheat and come and get Grace early, right? Which, of course, as we know, as Ready or Not fans, that's not going to go over very well with Mr. LaBelle, right? But then suddenly, bang, all right, now we're at the resort. We're at the mansion. It's time to go ahead and start getting the rules. See, and that's sort of how I felt watching it. It was a lot thrown at me very quickly. As for the actual substance of all of that beginning that I've kind of just outlaid in front of you, that I've kind of just shot at you real quick, I found the actors in this movie to kind of grate on me. I came in really excited to see Samara Weaving again after the first movie. I haven't really watched much else with her in it, and so this is still kind of like my first and second exposure to her as an actress. I think she was fine, but immediately between her and Kathryn Newton, there was this sort of incompatibility, right? Now, the characters are supposed to be on different wavelengths. They're estranged. They haven't really talked to each other. They have very different attitudes. You know, Grace having just survived what she did, and Faith coming in kind of like getting really introduced to this all as quickly as we are, and just kind of being like, oh, wow, okay, yeah. And to me, though, it felt like the two actresses were in very different scenes. And the energy coming from one way or the other just kind of never really meshed into something that was enjoyable for me. And that's a subjective thing. That's for me. But then in that same vein, you have the couple of Sarah Michelle Gellar and Shawn Hatosy as Ursula and Titus Danforth. I think Sarah Michelle Gellar did a fine job as this kind of like calculating, more subdued of the twins. But Shawn Hatosy's energy just kind of like was all over the place to me. And that energy being so like up and down over here and Michelle Gellar kind of being steady, they've never quite found that like same wavelength. Now, once again, these characters are supposed to be distinct, but as actors, I don't know, it just never felt, once again, like they were on the same page to me, if that makes so much sense. And I think that that is a detriment when this is supposed to be the main antagonist threat, these twins, Ursula and Titus Danforth. Now, whenever they're actually trying to begin the game and such, the movie really does start hitting a bit of a groove. And it hits a great groove for a little bit. You know, we're bringing in the characters to the resort. We're getting a little bit more introduction. Elijah Wood comes forth and really lays out what's happening with this game. Now, I still found some incompatibilities within that scene, just as far as like where people were as far as performance. But whenever we follow that up with like the beginning of the game, Grace and Faith are dumped onto the green of the ninth hole, and we're supposed to kicking in here, right? We get a nice little, touch at the beginning of like, oh yeah, it's the real rat race has begun, right? And as soon as Grace and Faith run into the woods, they're trying to get away from the threat. We kind of, next time that we see them having this casual conversation, leisurely strolling in the woods. They're kind of like arguing about like, giving up your dreams in favor of, marrying for money, or as they so eloquently put it, chasing money dick. And, that could have been funny. It could have been a nice little touch, but it feels ill-placed. And whenever you have that ill-placed sort of conversation, and it, to me, pops up multiple times within the movie where like what's being discussed at that time just does not fit for me personally on my level. And so I feel like that sort of just like drug down the movie in some aspects for me whenever I'm trying to watch in this analytical mode for a review, right? Now, let me go ahead and put this out there. I do not, and I mean under any circumstances, do not want to be too negative about this movie because there were enjoyable parts. For instance, after this nice little action set piece where Néstor Campbell's character is sniping at Faith and Grace, you have this intersection where Viraj, played by Nadim Umar Kitab, is sort of like chasing them out. They get to this like little commercial laundry area. And whenever they get to that commercial laundry area, Faith and Grace finally get their handcuffs undone, this little cat and mouse moment, and then they have a struggle, and Viraj gets pushed into a commercial washing machine, right? And they shut the door on him. You see this panic behind the mask that he's wearing. You can see it in his eyes, which was a nice touch. But then Grace looks at him and just hits him with the nastiest little one-liner. Bath time, presses the button, and melts the skin off of this dude's bones. I mean, absolutely melts him. And this little funny moment of them listening to him scream inside of the washing machine while being kind of grossed out and then having to deal with the aftermath of what spills out of that washing machine ended up being fun. And this isn't the only moment like this. In a similar vein, there's a moment where Grace and Maia J's character, she's like the daughter of Néstor Campbell's character. Well, to give some context, Maia's character was formerly engaged to Alex Ladomas, who was the husband from the first movie. And she brings in this sort of like want for a grudge, revenge against Grace, right? And then they set up this beautiful scene where they are ready to go at it. They're finally about to fight. And they end up pepper spraying both of each other. And they're fighting blindly, swinging around, while Total Eclipse of the Heart is playing in the background. It was perfect. Well, not perfect. I actually kind of wrote that at first, that it made me feel kind of cringe. But I ended up enjoying that fight scene. I ended up enjoying their sort of setting up of these like kind of themes within the characters, right? And that's really what I want to get across on this part is there are those moments in this movie. There are those moments where the humor does land and the action is going on at the same time and the tension, and it's all in this beautiful mix that made Ready or Not such a fun movie the first time, right? There's also another big positive in this movie. Aside from that finding those moments where all of those feelings and moments are mixing to make something entertaining, there was also, as far as the writing goes, a fun little thing that they were doing where they were playing around with the rules, right? And in this movie, in the first movie as well, the rules are very important. Letter of the law or Mr. LaBelle's going to get you, right? And there were a few moments, like there's a rule about accidental killing of another member or another family, disqualifying you and your whole bloodline being punished. They have a tease of that, and then they have like a full-blown, like, yep, that just happened, and the results. Then you also have like these sort of different approaches to this game from the different families, right? You have the guy who's kind of just like doing his sniping thing. You have the twins who are kind of trying to like play this dirty game where they're kind of like cheating and stuff like that. You have Olivia Cheng's character, who her entire goal and purpose is that she's found a loophole in the rules. And she's going to negotiate with Grace and try to exploit that loophole so that they can just end the game and nobody has to die. And so to me, whenever I'm watching the movie and they're playing around with those rules, or whenever we also get some really fun moments, and you get some more of like the unexpected moments because of that, you know? But that being said, let's get on to the elephant in the room. The part that makes or breaks this movie, to me, the finale. I won't spoil the exact details of this movie's finale, but in my mind, it's going to be very beauty is in the eye of the beholder kind of thing. All right? Because I will go ahead and say I loved the first finale. And I don't want to compare these too much because comparison is just the thief of joy. But in that first movie, you sort of have what makes that finale special. What makes the finale of the first movie special is they have this sort of mix of this tension of, is this all BS? Are these folks just crazy? Or is everything just going to like blow up whenever they do fail? You kind of have that tension of, is this baloney, right? And now, they can't exactly do that in this movie, right? We've seen it's not baloney. We've seen that it is 100% A1 prime grade truth. That if you do not accomplish Mr. LaBelle's stuff, you are done, right? And now, I will say that in this finale, the way that they just like sort of escape this final hurdle did catch me by surprise a little. And that, to me, is the important element, right? Just sort of that like little surprise at the end is what made the first one so easy to walk out of like happy. And this movie caught that. It still brought about like the holy shit LOL moment that you're looking for, right? At the end of it. However, I don't want to be too critical of a professional actor. But I found Shawn Hatosy, or Titus Danforth was his character's name, to really, really hamper this movie. Because I just never bought him. And that's a subjective thing. I just never bought him as this, like, actual tension building, like, scary character. To me, they established him as kind of like a buffoon right on, because he got smacked by his daddy and told to shut up, basically, to be a man. And you see him retaliate out of those things because of, like, an emotional immaturity. But at the end of the movie, whenever we're having this big finale, he really was just like cringe window dressing. You know what I mean? This is the main antagonist of the movie. And so for me, that's just something I couldn't get past, even though the finale of the movie is easily the most well-produced, well-designed, it's going to be the most memorable moment of the movie at the end of the day. But the fact is, there's just this one element to me that I could not get past to enjoy it. Let's sort of transition into like a final thoughts phase. Final thoughts, bang. This is where I'm going to grade the movie and give kind of like my see you later. But before I really dive into that, I want to kind of dive into like my criteria so that it's understood, just so it's not like, oh, whoa, But for me personally, I am a person who values acting very highly. The characters and such being brought to life by the actors, to me, is the most immersive part of a movie. Now, with that being said, you can still have a great movie with average or subpar acting. Because other elements can rise to take that. I'm talking about just writing in general, epic visual compositions, fun factor, tension building. All these things can help mask acting and still give me a super enjoyable experience. But for me this time, I don't know if those other factors completely masked sort of the distaste or like the sour taste in my mouth from a lot of the performance in this movie. What I'm going to say here is that although I'm trying to bring this objective scale, there's still a huge amount of subjectivity when it comes to movies and art. Don't let that ever be lost whenever you hear any discussion. There is no right or wrong. There's just, how did you feel about it? How did I feel about it? And you're here to see how I feel about it. So I'm going to try to quantify it, so to speak, this time. So my grading scale will work on like a letter grade. And think of it like an A is between 4 to 5 stars. Everything from 4.1 to 5.0. A B is everything between 3 and 4, and so on. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to give Ready or Not 2 like the bang on C rating. I think it is a 3 out of 5 experience, which to me is sort of the average, right? Maybe just above like a 2.5 to 3. It's grading out as at least an average movie going experience. What I would say though is I wouldn't go out and pay for this movie at the movie theater again. Now, like a B, I'm going like, yeah, let's get out to the movies. At least it'll be fun enough to get me out there. An A is like, get out to the theater now. This movie will knock your socks off. But yeah, this movie was a C. It was a 3 out of 5. I would say if you enjoyed the first movie, save a little bit of money and wait for it to come out on subscription streaming. That would be my genuine, heartfelt take on the movie. Overall, a somewhat enjoyable experience that just had its warts that I personally just like can't get past sometimes. But yeah, at the end of the day, we're talking about a horror action movie, action comedy. And that's just the way it's going to be sometimes. And so even trying to meet this movie at that level, it kind of just bangs out at average to me. But that, man, yeah, there are some fun moments to be had. And I hope you enjoyed this and that you want more movie review content here on the Rooster Illusion channel. Anyways, love you. See you next time here at the Rooster Illusion Abode. Peace.